Episode 58, Nik Bhatia, Bitcoin and the Lightning Network.
Interested in Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is a very vague concept to a lot of people.
Need to know more about cryptocurrency?
We're going to talk about the basics. This is something that people just have no idea about what crypto is.
How about buying, selling, and mining?
Tony, I think that's one of the things that's going to make us a little different from some other shows.
We're getting our hands dirty.
Then listen to Gary Leland and Tony Sakala, better known as the Crypto Cousins, on the Crypto Cousins podcast. This week's price.
This week's price in Bitcoin, $6,134. That's down $867.80 or 12.3% over the last 7 days. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Gary Leland here.
And this is Tony Sakala.
And Tony, did you notice how I put that double emphasis on down? I'm going to be doing some whining because I'm the crypto crybaby.
Crypto crybaby.
And I'm a perfect example of being a crypto crybaby. Oh, my gosh. I think I'm going to start changing that opening and go, the price of Bitcoin is, and go down for the last week, up for the last month, up for the last year. So I can have some up. And at the rate it's going, it may be down for the week, down for the month, up for the year. And then when it gets to down on all three, I may have to just start being a crypto crybaby again.
Well, the Turkish lira is not doing so well either.
No, as well as the Venezuelan bolivar.
That's true.
Yeah, the lira is in big trouble. Yeah, and if you're in those countries, if you're in Venezuela or like you said, Turkey or some other countries like that, you're probably sitting back going, "Oh my gosh, Bitcoin's doing great."
Bitcoin's doing great compared to those. There's no doubt about it. Bitcoin is really holding steady, and actually its market dominance is over 50% now. So it really is a good time for Bitcoin to shake out. The honey badger is going to shake out all these coins. I was flipping through coins the other day. There's so many strange coins out there. Denta coin. Denta actually a big coin. Pot coin. All kinds of crazy coins, and people have just jumped in there, and it was a great opportunity to create money out of nothing. So people went for it. Well,
we were starting to talk about this before the show, and Tony said we had a subject we were talking about. And Tony said, "Let's quit talking about that. Let's turn the recorder on and do it on the show." So I want to get back on that topic. We were talking about Bcash and the fact that it's down to $500. It was $2,000 at one time.
Yeah, the crazy thing about Bcash is now it was holding steady at about a tenth of the price of Bitcoin, 0.1 BTC. And people thought if it fell below 0.1, it was really, really wrecked. And we're at 0.08 now.
Yeah, I see that. And then on top of that, I think it was yesterday, I read the news that Bitmain, Jivan Wu, owned millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin cash. Way more Bcash than they had Bitcoin. I don't know the dollar amounts, but it was when you saw the numbers, it was oh my gosh, who would have that much Bcash?
Well, I don't know what the reporting requirements are for IPO in China, but what they reported was just horrible. Their slide deck was horrible because it didn't show anything positive if you know the marketplace. They had all this Bcash. They had everything in 4 wallets. So people were, charting these wallets. And you could see that some of these wallets were, mining wallets, and some of them were sales wallets. And they were just accumulating. And this Bcash is going to zero. So it's not a very pretty picture. So, what do? Of course, you IPO. And what was interesting, someone pointed out that there was no Monero wallet and no Ethereum wallet. And yet we know they created miners, even if they turned all 1,000 miners on just for a day or two to test.
Oh, yeah, they would have some somewhere, right?
Right.
Yeah,
you would think.
Yeah, where's that at?
Yeah,
because they had to at least turn it on when they tested it.
Exactly. how would you know if it worked?
Yeah. And then, did you read the story? Since we're on the Bcash train here, did you read the story about the bug in Bcash that Corey Fields found?
That's crazy. You know, here we got such integrity. People are helping out Bcash. I mean, that would have really been a bad.
Well, after Roger Ver has just pretty much hammered with no end Bitcoin and Bitcoin developers, then they find the bug in Bcash. I think it's called a SIG hash bug, and it could cause the chain to split. You know, and the two chains would be incompatible. But then Corey Fields is like going, you know, I'm under no requirement to report this to Bitcoin Cash. But if someone found it in our block, I hope they would report it to us. So I'm going to do it. And which is a nice guy. I kind of wonder if Bcash would have been the same way with the way they hammer. They would have probably, I don't know what they'd have done, but I kind of feel like we would have heard Roger Ver. We would have seen him now all over the place talking about how they were so great because they found the bug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's been very heated between the two. Well, of course, every other coin is a clone of Bitcoin. No one's figured out how to do it on their own. Bitcoin figured it out. Satoshi Nakamoto group, whoever they were, you know, they figured it out and took a chance. And it's been going strong. We're going to have our 10-year anniversary come January 9th. It's coming up. We should probably have a party. Speaking of parties.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of parties, we are having a party, Tony. You know that. We're having the Crypto Cousins first anniversary Cryptoversary. It's not an anniversary. It's a Cryptoversary. And we got that name from Ray Redacted. He came up with the name Cousin-iversary, and I changed it to Cryptoversary. I thought it flowed a little better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cousin Ray hopefully will be there, and we can buy him a drink or two. We're very excited about this. I didn't know. I thought it was, when you first mentioned Katy Trail, I was like, oh, I don't know. We're going to be like out there by the trees and, you know, people running by and all that. But it's not an outdoor thing. It's a real bar.
It's indoor-outdoor. It's got an indoor and a patio type place. It's actually really good. I've been there several times, and it is by Katy Trail. You can be running down the trail, stopping there for a beer. That's how it's set up.
There you go.
It's at like the end of the road. If you're driving down the street ends, and there's the place, and then on the other side of the place is Katy Trail. But it's got an inside-outside. It's fantastic. It's got like tons of beer and drinks and cornhole and darts and the music, and I've been there several times. It's fantastic. We're going to do that on September the 28th. If you're interested at all, it ought to be a great party, and Tony and I are always up for an excuse for a great party.
Absolutely. We're really excited. Now, I'm afraid to ask, cornhole? What's cornhole?
Really?
I've been in Texas a long time, but I stay away from anything that sounds a little...
I agree. When I first heard that, I was like going... my daughter, the first time I heard that was, I don't know how many years ago, my daughter texted me and said, Dad, you need to buy the domain name cornholejunk.com. It's like going, what? But it's a game. You've seen it before. It's a game with bean bags.
Oh, it's the bean bag. Okay.
And they throw them in the holes. It's really big down here. I don't know if it is around the rest of the country. But that's called cornhole. So
it's kids safe.
It's kids safe. But this will be a great party. This place it won the award from Big D for best margaritas. I think. And one year, maybe it won the award for best happy hour. So it's a great place to go. It's a fun place rather than being all stuffy, and has indoor-outdoor. So if you're interested in that at all, go to cryptocousins.com/party. And that's cryptocousins.com/party, and you can find out about that. And that's a Facebook group or a Facebook event is what that is. So join up. We'd like to see you there, whether you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth or Texas area or not. This will be a great event. And also, Tony, I just want to let you know, I added, this is new, and I had some help from somebody, but we added, actually, someone else did this for us, in all honesty. I didn't actually even do it, but if you're in India, Europe, Australia, or the United States, so that's all the 4 major zones, you can now subscribe to the 4-Minute Crypto Show on Alexa Flash Briefings. And so that's kind of cool. You got to set up a separate one for each one of those zones. It's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work.
Yeah, I had given up on it, as a matter of fact. And someone else did it for us. And Nik Brown was his name. And I appreciate that, Nick. But he set that up. And if you go to 4minutecrypto.com/Alexa, that's 4minutecrypto.com/Alexa, you can join, you can add the Alexa flash briefing. So in the morning when you wake up, you just, while you're cooking your breakfast, you go, Alexa, give me my news. And it goes through the different news articles you've chosen. You might chose the weather, or you might have chose the stock updates, or you might have chose 4 Minute Crypto, which is now 3 minutes, because I'm trying to shorten it to make it more efficient for the Alexa. So people should subscribe to that, or they can listen to the Crypto Cousins, as always, just by telling their Alexa to say, play Crypto Cousins podcast, and they can listen to
play podcast. Crypto
Cousins. Right. Yeah, I got that backwards. Yeah, you have to tell it
that
it's a podcast.
Because we're not an active verb. The verb comes first for some reason, I guess.
Well,
so I know, because that was what I tried for the first time. I was like, it's not working.
But then you played podcast, so it's play podcast. So it's basically saying, play the podcast Crypto Cousins.
Exactly.
Okay. So you can get us on Alexa either way, whichever way you prefer. But I was going to put Crypto Cousins on there, but it can't be a flash briefing because it's got to be less than 5 minutes. And Tony, we've never that ain't going to happen.
Close. No way. No.
And then another thing I found interesting was, you told me about this last week. Mastodon has added NVK is his handle, added bitcoinhackers.org, which is a Mastodon. It's not really called a group. What's it called, Tony?
Instance.
An instance. What's that mean? And why is it called an instance?
It's a programming term. So you have this base of a particular variable or function, and then you say, okay, create a new instance of that function. Oh. And so then you can go use that in your subroutine or whatever language you're using. Then in this case, you have this system called Mastodon, and it's basically a distributed Twitter, a decentralized Twitter. And so anyone can spin up, like we have our own Bitcoin Core node, we have our own Bitcoin full node. You and I can spin up our own Mastodon and run an instance of it, and it'll be like having our own Twitter.
Do you download it on your own server?
Yeah, I'm sure that NVK has his own server or servers and running it there.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of like, a lot of people are getting upset at Twitter. And so this is kind of like Twitter, but kind of like non-centralized. Is that how you describe it? A non-centralized Twitter type instance? Exactly.
So instead of wondering if you tweet something wrong, that your Twitter account might get canceled or deleted or whatever they do, then you can have it on here. You can say what you want. You won't be censored. And it does connect to Twitter. Like you can connect it with an IFTT, if this then that IFTT instance where you it'll copy over all the things you say on Mastodon. So you use Mastodon as your place to say stuff, and then it'll get reflected on Twitter. And so the exciting news is that bitcoinhackers.org is the URL, and NVK, or Rodolfo Novak, is his name. He created this instance, and boy, the Bitcoiners just started flooding towards that, because this was in the wake of the Alex Jones debacle. And we talked a little about that in the last show. We chose not to say his name because it was for dramatic effect. I don't think we're going to get pulled anywhere if we talk about the news. But basically, the social media giants say that terms of service say, we don't like what you're saying. We're calling it hate speech. And there's a big debate out there about what that is. But the truth is, a lot of people believe that hate speech is free speech. So you can say what you want, and if someone gets offended, that's really too bad, but that's really not real cause to cancel someone's account in a public forum.
And I think you can talk about, well, you can't shill ICOs. That's for sure. I saw some rules he put up. You can't shill ICOs. There's several things you can't do. I mean, it's not like you can get on here and say, hey, it's not like Roger Ver could get on here and promote Bitcoin Cash.
Oh, okay. So we have different rules on Mastodon. Well, that's the whole point. If we want to say what we want, we'll have to launch our own instance, cryptocousins.talk.
Well, we got
a lot of domains.
We got a lot of stuff to do anyway.
Yes, we're busy with a lot of things.
So if you want to get on there, go to bitcoinhackers.org. I just joined maybe to get your name, if nothing else, on there, just like you'd want your Twitter handle. If you're a Bitcoin maximalist, or if you really are into Bitcoin, I went ahead. I got something new. I usually get Gary Leland. I got @Gary. Usually I'm not able to get @Gary because Gary Vanderhoort or whatever is always grabbing me.
Oh, man.
Yeah, like when Facebook came out, they had at 12 o'clock. I don't know if you remember, at 12 o'clock, you could get your name.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my wife was there, my daughters were there, my daughter's boyfriend. I were there. We all had our computers. At 12 o'clock, we were hammering. At 12, I was on like 30 seconds into it, and Gary Vanderchuck had the name. They'd given it to him, Gary. Sure. I was upset about that.
I bet.
Yeah, they just gave it to him. I mean, so I grabbed it this time. Not that this is a big one. And then Tony Sakala at bitcoinhackers.org.
I thought I'd keep it the same, yeah.
But you got to put the @ in front of it, I guess. The @Tony Sakala at bitcoinhackers.org and @Gary at bitcoinhackers.org. Right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I don't know.
When you're logging into Mastodon, because basically it's your handle and then your server. Because there are dozens of other servers on Mastodon. And you can choose to just look at what the people on your local instance are saying. I call it server instance. And those, you'll just see those. Or you can go, global and see the whole thing.
And we're in talks with MBK right now to try to get him on next week's show or the week after. So we'll see how that goes. But check that out, because I think that's pretty cool, to be honest with you. Not that I've been lying up till then. I hate that when I say that. I've been lying about everything I've said all show, so I'll be honest with you. One thing, and that's that bitcoinhackers.org is cool. Now I'll get back to lying. And also, don't forget, give us a call with your questions, which we have several now we need to catch up on, but I'm too lazy to get in there today. So call us with questions at 747-777-9471 or email us at cryptocousins@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments, and attempt to try to keep this show somewhat at a decent length. Let's go to today's interview. Today we have Nik Bhatia, and I originally had named the episode The Time Value of Bitcoin because that's what his talk was at BitBlock Boom. But when we did the interview, it really became the Bitcoin and Lightning Network conversation. So I renamed it for the show because really we talked a little bit about his talk, but we really spent more time trying to understand the Lightning Network and what he was talking about with the Lightning Network, I would say, wouldn't you?
I would say it could go either way because what he's trying to do is to introduce a new concept into the Lightning Network. And that is this idea of interest, the time value of Bitcoin bringing you interest. So it is the overarching term really is the time value of Bitcoin and how it works on the Lightning Network.
Well, maybe I should have kept the title of the show the same. Oh, well, that's the way it goes.
Well, I'm sure we can edit it back.
Well, you want to, before we go over to the interview, you want to give us a little bit of info on Nik?
Yeah, Nik, he's based in Los Angeles, and he's a trader of U.S. Treasuries and interest rate futures for Payden and Rygel. So Payden and Rygel are investment managers with over $100 billion in assets under management. So that's his day job, and he's worked there since 2016, and prior to that he worked at Rimrock Capital, a hedge fund in Irvine, California, and he received his master's in finance from IE University in Madrid, Spain in 2013, and his bachelor's in social sciences from the University of Southern California in 2011. So Nik has been in the finance side for many, many years, and when he discovered Bitcoin, as he tells us in the interview, he really started to carve out these ideas about how Bitcoin can function as an interest-bearing asset without any counterparty risk. And I think that's really the key to what he was talking about, and people are going to be very interested to hear about it.
Well, I was very interested. I kind of, in hindsight now, feel like I was asking such stupid questions, but hopefully there are some other people who know as small amount about the Lightning Network as I do, and will ask and about nodes, and we'll say, oh, I'm glad Gary asked those basic rudimentary questions, where Tony's were very intelligent, of course. So let's.
That's what we cover. We cover the whole ground. I mean, you go out there and you do your best to ask the questions that the average person's going to ask because they don't know about it.
Well, I'm pretty average. Is that what you're saying,
Yeah,
Tony?
well, I think you play one on the radio.
It's kind of like that room we were in talking to that guy, and he told us. He said of himself, "I'm the most intelligent person here, and of the group, Tony, you're the second, and Gary, you're the least." So now, whenever I'm around that group, I always go. I actually always go, gosh, I'm just really not that intelligent. And I don't even know if he realizes where I'm bringing that up from because he was so drunk.
That was an interesting conversation.
A very interesting conversation. And that's for another time. So let's go and listen to Nik and find out about the time value of Bitcoin.
Okay, Nik, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us on the Crypto Cousins. This is Gary.
And this is Tony.
Nik, first thing I want to know before we get into anything else is, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into Bitcoin and start your information that you're giving out that's taking the Bitcoin world by storm?
Thank you guys for having me. So I work in the traditional financial markets as a bond trader. I trade U.S. Treasuries and other interest rate derivatives. And global macroeconomics is my passion. I studied economics in college, and I did a lot of self-study on the Austrian economic side as well when I was in college. And I got into Bitcoin in 2016. I had heard about Bitcoin through the Austrian circles for a while. Never did the technical deep dive into what Bitcoin actually is and how it works until I started to hear this word blockchain way too much in the financial industry in 2015, 16. So I decided to start that deep dive. And once I learned about what Bitcoin was, how it worked, I was fascinated, and the rest is history.
So you went down the rabbit hole.
I did. Exactly.
And you haven't come back out. You swallowed the pill.
I have not.
Drank the Kool-Aid. What else can we say?
Yeah,
that's right.
Before we go any further, I got something I got to ask you. And I'm going to take this answer and probably edit it out and use it somewhere else also. So tell me, real quick, what did you think of BitBlock Boom?
It was tremendous. Honestly, I had the time of my life at BitBlock Boom, and if it wasn't for BitBlock Boom and Pierre Richard, who set me up with you guys, I don't know if I would be out in the public talking about Bitcoin. It just kind of seemed like the perfect place to go and try to meet some Bitcoiners. And then after talking with Pierre, he said, I think your topic is interesting. How would you like me to set you up with Tony and Gary, and maybe you can speak at the conference? And so it's because of BitBlock Boom that I decided to publish my material. So thank you guys.
Well, excellent.
Well, fantastic. That feels really good. We're very honored to be part of this. It's a fantastic look at Bitcoin. I love your viewpoints and how you're really opening up a whole line of discussion that hasn't really been touched upon before.
And let me tell you guys something about the people that I met there. These are people that I have learned from for 2 or 3 years now, just on Twitter and reading their articles. And, people like Tor and Saifedean and Pierre and Bitstein, just to meet those people and talk with them and share ideas really was an amazing experience, and one that I will definitely never forget.
I think the fact that it was a smaller conference than normal really put it in a personal setting where people just weren't going on the stage and coming off, to me, right. Where you could hang out with them and talk to them and mingle with them.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I don't want to make this a whole Bit Block Boom commercial, but you were there, one of our speakers, one of our great speakers, and I just enjoyed it so much myself, and I know you did, so that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't have a reference point for other Bitcoin conferences because this was the first one I had been to, but the size was perfect because it really did allow all of us to chat in the hallways between speeches. The dinner on Friday night, the brunch on Sunday morning. The whole weekend was just great and great to make some friends as well.
I agree completely. Well, now let's get on to the show. I was listening to your you did an interview recently on another podcast. And I don't have my phone here. I can't remember the name of the podcast, but he was at our event.
Bottom Shelf?
Yes, Bottom Shelf. Yeah, he's a nice guy. I just couldn't remember the name of his show. And you were going into, because I wanted to, during your talk, I was really busy. So I wanted to make sure I listened to that tonight. And I want you to kind of get into this. Your real information, your real talk, or what you're about right now is interest on the Lightning Network, right?
That's correct.
Can you kind of go into that for people and kind of educate me on this too?
Okay, so Bitcoin is the base layer, right? And that's where we take final settlement of our private keys. Bitcoin held in cold storage is secure as long as you've properly stored it and you take the right security precautions. That Bitcoin is yours. 1 BTC equals 1 BTC, no matter how short or long of a time you keep it in that private key. Now, the Lightning Network is a peer-to-peer routing network that uses Bitcoin as its underlying currency. So in the Lightning Network, you can stake Bitcoin to payment channels, and you can earn routing fees on that Bitcoin that you've staked. That type of activity is what interest is, right? We stake principal, and we earn income, and we do so over a period of time. That can be classified as interest. Now, whether you want to call it fees or interest, the bottom line is you have to lock up capital to earn money to do so. And that type of activity is possible on the Lightning Network. It is definitely marginally less secure than keeping your Bitcoin in cold storage because on the Lightning Network, you have to keep your Bitcoin in a hot wallet environment. You also have to manage those payment channels correctly because if you don't, it's possible that a malicious actor could take your Bitcoin from you. However, the Lightning Network is an opportunity for Bitcoin holders to earn income without surrendering their private keys. This is a very unique opportunity and what I decided to write about.
Well, I guess the question is the risk factor involved is really why people would be earning these fees is because there's an opportunity for someone to take their Bitcoin. And it seems like it's a big difference between a cold storage and a hot wallet.
That's right. And so, if you take risk, you should be rewarded for that risk. So in cold storage, you're not taking any counterparty risk. You're not putting it on an exchange, but you're not going to earn any money from that. In the Lightning Network, you are starting to take a little bit of hot wallet risk and what I'm calling payment channel management risk. But you're not really taking that counterparty risk because you're not surrendering your private keys. You're not posting a transaction to the blockchain and sending that Bitcoin away from you. You're simply time locking it in payment channels, and that is the way that we can stake Bitcoin to the Lightning Network. Now, you can charge people routing fees to use your channels for their money to get from point A to point B. It might be going through your node, and that's how we can earn fees in the Lightning Network.
So is that possible now, or is this something that you're saying will be possible?
This is possible now. The Lightning Network is live. People are routing payments, and people are sending payments and paying nodes to use their channel. And so that is definitely possible as of right now. Now, the size of the Lightning Network and the amount that it's actually used in the world right now, it's still very small and very early. So there is an opportunity there to familiarize yourself with the Lightning Network, to familiarize yourself with how to manage these payment channels, what type of fees to charge, how much or how little to charge, how many channels to open up. which nodes are going to be the right ones to be connected to. So all these factors right now, this is what people are experimenting with. There are people actually earning money in the Lightning Network, but again, it's going to be pennies and not necessarily thousands of dollars yet.
So really, we're at the stage like in the ARPANET when you have professor talking with professor, and the network is really small, and we're buying stickers from Blockstream, basically. This is not really something that's used in the world as a live, real use cases so far. We're still experimenting, in other words.
We are, and you can think about Bitcoin the opposite way. Bitcoin is being used in a real environment. Millions of dollars, billions of dollars are at stake. We see transactions that are multi-millions of dollars get confirmed within a few minutes. This is real international transfer of money and wealth using the Bitcoin blockchain. Lightning Network just is not anything close to that type of activity yet. So we want to see the technology improve. We want to see the security improve, the development continue, different Lightning wallet providers release versions of their software. So all these things, we have to see come in the future.
I have a couple of questions. These questions have to do with my lack of knowledge on the Lightning Network. Number one, is there a minimum amount of Bitcoin you have to stake? Because this is basically proof of stake, it sounds like to me. Is there a minimum amount of Bitcoin you got to stake to do the Lightning node or whatever?
Sure. So I wouldn't necessarily call it proof of stake, but you have to stake enough Bitcoin so that people will use your channel. So for example, Tony, if you want to send Gary $20 and you don't have a channel open with Gary, but you see that there's a route for your Bitcoin to get there, the channels on the way from point A to point B have to be larger than $20, right? Or else your money won't fit through that channel. Mm-hmm. So if you have a $10 channel open, say I have a $10 channel open with Gary, Tony, you're not going to be able to use my channel because you're sending $20. So is there a hard minimum? No, but there is a minimum if you want your channels to be actually used and you want to be able to earn routing fees. So I hope that answers your question.
What amount would you say that is?
Well, right now it's going to be small. So I know that the average size of a Lightning channel it's less than $100. I really don't know the exact number, but
that's
somewhere.
Good enough. I didn't know if it was $100 or if it was 5 Bitcoins. See, that's what I was trying to get at. I had no idea.
No, the size of the Lightning Network right now is only about 100 Bitcoin total. So it's really not that big. It's definitely not big enough to conduct any sort of international finance like we're doing on the Bitcoin blockchain. So again, it's still early, but Lightning Network now has been active for several months. Thousands of channels are open and dozens of Bitcoin are staked. So again, it's nothing enormous, but it's definitely underway.
So is this a different node than my Bitcoin node that I already run? I'd have to start a Lightning node also?
It's additional software, and you must be running the software on a machine that's also running a full node, because the Lightning Network is an app on top of Bitcoin, and it refers to the security of the blockchain. So you need a live full node underlying your Lightning node. So it's additional software, but it has to be on the same computer.
Okay, and my third question, and I'll be through with my little series of questions here, is there, in a lot of things on the internet, there's a reason you want to get in early. Because if you get in early, you're going, man, I'm glad I got into that early. And is that the case with the Lightning node, that you're going to have some advantage later in life by being an early adopter now that you've gained, whether it's seniority or priority or anything like that?
Sure. So I'll say both yes and no. It's yes because if you have the technical skill set and know-how to manage these payment channels with some of these factors that I was describing, position in the network, how much to keep in each channel, all that kind of stuff, then yes, it's definitely, I think, advantageous to start now and get your feet wet. But the answer is also no, because you cannot do this passively. Like if you bought Bitcoin at $50 per Bitcoin, you could just sit back, keep that Bitcoin in cold storage, and you would have benefited greatly from being in early. On the Lightning Network, if you don't manage it actively, you're either going to not make any money or potentially lose money.
How many hours a week would that take to keep it up to date and do the work on it? What are we talking here? Are we talking 40 hours a week, or is it just a couple hours a week?
I don't think it's time. I think it's skill.
Okay. Skill level.
Computer science expertise really is what we're talking about. And which, by the way, I don't have, and that's why I don't run a Lightning node yet, because I don't think I can do so in a safe manner. My background is financial in nature. It's not computer science. I wish I could code like these brilliant devs out there, but I can't. And so I'm going to wait until the user experience improves so that someone like me can start participating in the Lightning Network.
Right. Okay, that's my questions. Thanks for answering those. So it's something that I don't want to get into either, I can tell you right now, because I am not a coder. I can hack my way and figure my way through stuff. So, Tony, I'll let you take over because I got my questions answered.
Well, I think that's a good segue into the question I was going to raise was, it seems like at this point, we really have the need for like a Steve Wozniak, like you've got somebody in your company who's the tech guy who's doing this. But I think they're also, to be successful in this, you're going to need a Steve Jobs as well. You're going to need somebody with the business acumen to figure out, like, how do you build this and how do you turn this into a business? How do you, create a network of channels that dominate over the competition? I mean, sooner or later, you're going to say to yourself, well, it's this one or that one. And like how, and I guess it sort of segues into this rates. How do people determine? I mean, I want to take the cheapest rate through the path always, but what's going to determine whether, the software chooses, mine, which is cheap, or maybe someone else's, which is more expensive? I mean, how is that going to work?
It's a great question. So I think that certain software will do it for you and have some sort of AI that automatically picks a route to your destination, and others will want to do it themselves, and they will want to manage it step by step themselves. Maybe they want to use certain channels for non-financial, non-monetary reasons, right? Maybe it's a censorship issue, a privacy issue, where they, want to take a specific route. So I think that these are all going to be factors here in how we see this unfold. I hope that it develops like a free market. If you charge a smaller fee for routing, hopefully you'll earn more business. But somebody else might be providing additional features in the Lightning Network that might motivate you to use their channel. So we'll have to wait and see, and how it unfolds.
You raised the privacy issue. Now it seems to me that
we got Tony going now.
That there's a relationship between this and as Gary pointed out in 4-Minute Crypto, like about a week ago, the coin mixing services. So you're in a Lightning node. From what I understand it, every hop along the way is wrapped up in an envelope. It's really very, very private as to what's happening, and it's not ever recorded on the blockchain till the end. So what about the privacy?
Right. So the Lightning Network does use onion routing, which is what you're referring to. And the Lightning Network can be thought of as a privacy layer. So I'm thinking about it as a capital markets layer. Other people are looking at it like a transactions layer. And other people are looking at it like a privacy layer. And it does allow for all these types of things. So if your main motivation is privacy, coin mixing, that type of stuff, you'll use the Lightning Network a specific way. If your main motivation is to earn fees, you're going to position yourself like a sort of a central routing hub to the extent that you can. There are thousands of nodes, and hopefully there are going to be tens of thousands and maybe one day millions of nodes. So there's no way that you're going to be able to just have a monopoly and force people to use your channel, but you'll try your best to earn as many fees as you can. And other people just want to use it for cheap transactions, and they're just spenders, and they're not necessarily interested in earning routing fees. And so they're just going to use the Lightning Network in a merchant-consumer type of relationship.
So, for instance, if Gary had a softball junk store and he wanted to take Lightning payments, it would behoove him to use his full node, put the Lightning Network on top of that full node, and then open it up for people to send him Lightning payments. He would be able to manage that and then have the ability to do this without having confirmations take place over whatever, an hour. I mean, no one wants to stand at the register for an hour.
Wait for an hour. I want to buy it with Bitcoin, but I don't have an hour today. I'll come back tomorrow.
Exactly. And this is where the, criticisms of Bitcoin being slow come into play here. Bitcoin is slow for a reason, because we don't need instant settlement for large sums of money. We don't need instant settlement for security. We need slow and proof of work, confirmations. And that's what makes Bitcoin the digital gold that people refer to it. It's not about being fast. It's about being censorship resistant, scarce, final settlement of a digital, scarce asset. And Lightning Network allows us to use Bitcoin instantly, because whoever's using the Lightning Network already has final settled Bitcoin that they're bringing into it. And that's the beauty here, is that we really can use Lightning Network as an instant transaction. It might not be settled yet, but the Bitcoin that you're sending and receiving is real.
So the average person really still doesn't have the opportunity, unless they're running a full node and they really know how to use the command line. From what I've seen, that it's getting up a Lightning Network node requires a little more a technical skill than the average user who may be listening in on our show.
That's correct. And I've read some of these how-to guides on how to set up your Lightning node, and I've gone through probably half a dozen of them over the past several months. And, it's very intimidating for somebody that doesn't, know the command line. So I'm not trying to scare people away. I definitely encourage all types of self-learning. But, I can speak from personal experience that I haven't done so yet, because the code is a little intimidating to me.
Well, and folks can set up on a test on the testnet if they want to play around and use testnet Bitcoin, so that they're really not risking anything if they want to load up their software properly.
That's right. And there's a Lightning testnet, that people are using to try out things. But even if you want to use mainnet, the Lightning Network still isn't big enough for you to really lose all that much money. So, if you want to put $100 in, let's say, 5 different payment channels, it might be the best $100 that you ever spent on education, because you'll live and learn. You might lose a little money, but what's $100 if you're going to teach yourself a skill set that can potentially make you money in the future?
Oh, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I've certainly lost my fair share of money educationally building master nodes and that sort of thing. And Gary and I have built mining on AWS and that sort of thing, just to see what happens. What happens is you lose money, but I've learned a lot.
Nik, this though sounds to me, if I just to make this clear, the Lightning Network we're talking about here is you're basically just putting your money instead of your Bitcoin, instead of your hard wallet, on the Lightning Network in hopes of making a return off of it, and so you're making an income off your Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, and that's going to vary according to what fees you charge and what services you provide.
That's correct. And so the way to think of it is, if you keep savings in Bitcoin, which I know a lot of Bitcoiners do, they use it as a savings vehicle and a transfer of wealth from today into the future to themselves. And that's your primary motive for owning Bitcoin, which I know it is for a lot of people, including myself. You're not going to go out and stake all that Bitcoin to the Lightning Network and try to earn income on it. You're going to only stake some of it, and hopefully not a lot of it yet. Hopefully just a little bit, because it still is experimental technology, and we have to see how things are going to develop there. But yes, you can stake a little bit of your Bitcoin and invest it into the Lightning Network and try to earn routing fees by doing so.
And these routing fees are basically, I recall in your first paper, there was Andreas Antonopoulos had a node, and then the other fellow had a node, and the numbers were like just a few hundred or a few thousand Satoshi over a week or so. I mean, we're talking Satoshi level earnings here, correct?
That's right. And it wasn't Andreas Antonopoulos. It was another Andreas that had a node there. So one of them earned 7,000 odd Satoshis and the other 4,000 odd Satoshis. So it really wasn't that much money. Like I said, it's still very, very small. It's still pennies. But the most important thing here, guys, is that the number is not zero, right? And as a financial person, seeing a number that's non-zero makes you want to calculate what it is, and it makes you want to calculate the other one and compare the two and make a relative value comparison. And so that's what I was doing in that article where I showed that Alex Bosworth made 40 basis points, which on an annualized basis for that week, which is 0.4%. And Andreas made 0.005%, so half a basis point, less by a factor of 80. And that really should go to show you guys that we're not talking about something that you can just put money and earn income right away. One person is earning, half of a basis point while the other's earning 40. Well, which guy knows what he's doing more? He knows what he's doing more potentially by a factor of 80. So that's really the difference here, where you and I would probably be in that previous camp making next to nothing. I would be. While the computer science experts are making all the money because they know what the hell is going on, pardon my language. So, it's really not it's not for everybody right now. And I think that, we'll have to learn from these pioneers, and we'll have to watch the activity of the people that are paving the way here. And they're going to show us what type of activity is going to earn the most money here.
So you think eventually there'll be software just like downloading a node, a Bitcoin node now? You just download software and pretty much anyone can set one up, compared to probably how it was 8 years ago. I'm sure it was a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I think that one day eventually, hopefully in a few years from now, we'll have an entire Lightning Bank open source software on autopilot with artificial intelligence that you will be able to download, and all you will have to do is deposit your Bitcoin, and it'll go out there, open channels for you, and collect routing fees along the way. So, that's a very optimistic vision of the future, but yeah, I think it'll happen one day.
And it seems like the network itself is it like, can you relate it to like BitTorrent, like the Bitcoin network? You're finding these nodes automatically, or are you choosing these nodes, or is that somehow part of the skill set of who you connect to in other channels?
Right now, it's definitely part of the skill set. In the future, node software might include this type of, and I know that these types of improvements are being made as we speak. There are 3 Lightning implementations, and there are many more wallet providers that are writing code on top of Lightning Network. So this type of autopilot software or artificial intelligence software is being written as we speak. But again, very, very early days here in the Lightning Network.
Well, this is exciting because we're always enjoy being pioneers in the field and seeing what's happening. Gary and I have lived through the personal computer pioneer age. We've lived through the internet pioneer age. Gary was one of the first top 50 websites on the planet, thanks to, what was it, Time Magazine?
Time Magazine.
Time Magazine said that. So, so we're all-time pioneers. And so when we see this, we're very excited about what are the possibilities and how you're linking it up with the financial world and actually helping us to create the language for it is really what's necessary to bridge the gap, because the computer guys are just, we're just putting together the network, and we're not really seeing the vision of, 40 basis points to you is very exciting. It's a break.
Yeah, and it is. And I'm glad that you brought up the word language, because I think that using analogies from traditional finance is going to be important for Bitcoin capital markets going forward. But I think we also need a brand new language here. And so that's what I'm trying to do here, is put some ideas out and see if people can coalesce around word choice, a glossary, or terms that we can use going forward. Like, for example, payment channel management risk. That's a mouthful, but it does describe one of the main risks in Lightning Network. So, do people want to use that? I heard someone use the term channel state risk. I thought that was easier to say and kind of smoother off the tongue. So the language itself is important to develop, and that's one of the things that hopefully I will be contributing to the Lightning Network as we continue to financialize Bitcoin. I think that one of the things that I just wrote about, I called my article "The Bitcoin Second Layer," and it was a prelude to the other time value articles that I wrote. And I did so because I want people that aren't necessarily familiar with the Lightning Network to understand that money evolves in a layered way, where if you think about gold being the base layer, physical gold nuggets being the base layer, and then gold certificates being a higher layer that we can use for more instant transactions but aren't necessarily as secure as the physical metal itself. I think that understanding money evolves in layers is very important to understanding the Lightning Network, where the base layer Bitcoin is your final settlement, secure physical gold equivalent, and Lightning Network is more like gold certificates that can be exchanged really quickly. Now, in Lightning Network, the counterparty risk is not necessarily the same as putting your gold in a vault and having a bank issue you a piece of paper in return, which then is carrying significant counterparty risk of the vault owner. Lightning Network works a little differently, and it is a little bit more your Bitcoin than the gold analogy. But I think, again, the layered money approach to understanding things is very important here.
Well, and it seemed like if it wasn't that article, maybe the other one of the others, that the distinction you made, the most important distinction, was that this is the first opportunity for someone to earn money without the counterparty risk.
Right, and you still have that malicious counterparty risk, but you don't surrender your private keys, and that's the key distinction here. And then, the evolution of my idea is that once we can start to calculate these interest rates, maybe we can come together, publish a rate to each other, average it, and set some sort of a reference rate using the Lightning Network. So that's LNRR, Lightning Network Reference Rate. And that's something that I'd like to see develop over the coming years. But definitely the first step is getting the Lightning Network working, secure, and seeing people earn income on an individual node basis.
Well, it sounds like your conversations with the technical providers, the people who are making the Lightning node wallets, that's going to be a critical conversation, and because they are really the implementers of these ideas.
Yes, they're definitely the target audience is the devs themselves. The devs make everything work for us, and so we're nothing without them. And I hope they read my articles. I hope they like it. I hope they reach out and continue to reach out, and we can get some conversations going on how we can integrate these things. And the great thing about Bitcoin is that everything that's being built on the second layer and above is going to be completely opt-in. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. You can still keep your private keys in cold storage, and you never have to touch any of this, and you can still maintain your financial sovereignty. So that's the great thing about Bitcoin, is that you don't have to do anything if you don't want to.
Mm-hmm. So I like that analogy. So it's like the layered approach is like if you want to keep your gold in your wallet or your safe, you can. If you want to get a gold certificate and send it over to the bank, then that's your choice. So you really are your keys, your Bitcoin, that sort of thing. That really is everyone's option, because you hear a lot of people get very vociferous. There's a lot of FUD out there, especially from certain camps. We won't mention names, that really trying to FUD up the Lightning Network as some sort of central bank reincarnation. That we're somehow trying to take people's Bitcoin. Do you ever encounter that on Twitter?
Yes, there's a lot of FUD out there. I really I didn't know what all these Bitcoiners deal with until I got out on Twitter and the public sphere, and all of a sudden you see this type of FUD hit you right away. But thankfully we have a mute button, and we can just keep continuing to work hard and share ideas with each other, and that's what I will continue to do.
Fantastic. And we'll see you on Mastodon as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. If we need it.
I haven't seen you on there, Nick.
Honestly, I started an account before the @NBK started his, and then I tried to link it to the other, and it didn't work, and so I haven't followed up there. But
okay, well, that's why I haven't seen you.
If we need it, we'll find each other there. I'm sure of it.
So how do people find you now, let's say?
So my articles are on Medium at time value of BTC, and you can find me on Twitter, the same handle at time value of BTC. And I'm just putting out an article whenever I get the inspiration, and developing my time value concepts and Lightning Network reference rate, and then just engaging with people on Twitter.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Your articles are well written, and I really enjoy reading them. I like that you're developing the series and kind of doing a George Lucas, putting that new one out as the first one, introducing the series. I like
a little Star Wars homage there.
Well, fantastic. It's been great reconnecting. We'll do this again regularly until we see you next year at the next BitBlock Boom.
Hey, I also want to thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed meeting you and getting to know you at BitBlock Boom, and I was not wanting to say that again because I feel like I didn't want this whole show to be a BitBlock Boom commercial, but I really enjoyed meeting you and your wife and your child there. You had your little girl there, seeing her father speak for the first time. I thought that was kind of cool. That's
right. Gary, Tony, I really appreciate the time. Thank you guys for having me on. And thank you for being amazing hosts in Dallas and for including my family. That was really special for my wife and daughter to be there for my speech as well. So thank you guys again, and I look forward to chatting soon.
And until next time, we'll talk to you later, Nick.
Take care, guys.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's show, Tony. I enjoyed talking with Nick. I enjoyed having Nick at the conference and meeting him. I enjoyed everything about Nick.
Yes, we're looking forward to having Nick back, and who knows in a year where we're going to be, because the technology changes so rapidly that people will be building these Lightning Network channels and making money. I really can see how taking Bitcoin as at your cash register, for softball junk and your other businesses, Leland's Wallpaper, how it would be very difficult to wait for 6 confirmations, someone standing at the register for an hour. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I can see that. I agree. Okay, you want to buy that with Bitcoin? You want to go ahead and have it? Go ahead and scan my thing and have a seat over there.
Yeah, we'll get you a cup of coffee.
Yeah, we'll bring you lunch. You want to put that lunch on your Bitcoin tab because you're going to be here a while, buddy. But yeah, I agree. And thanks for the plugs for my store, Softball Junk and Leland's Wallpaper. That's my day job.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah. So anything you want to get into before we get out of here?
Just a reminder, if people are still with us, check out cryptocousins.com/party. It's going to be a big blast. We're going to have a good time. We're going to play cornhole.
My daughter and wife are pretty good, awesome team. They play that a lot. They're pretty good together at that. So if anyone is playing cornhole, they will probably get whooped by them too. Also want to make sure everybody knows I know we talked about it during the interview with Nick, but check out BitBlock Boom. We started working on the site for next year. It's still not ready for next year's, but soon will be. It'll be ready for next year's, and we'll be adding speakers, and it's going to be a great event again. So be sure and check out.
Check it out. You can't buy a ticket yet, but you can see what happened last year. You'll see the photos and get a sense for it, and basically mark your calendar. Like, don't schedule anything for the weekend of June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, 2019.
Yeah, this is going to be this year will be even better than last year because we know what we're doing this time. Exactly. Last year, like Nick said, was a great event, but now we actually know what we're doing.
We actually know what we're doing.
Yeah. So, and also a big thanks to everyone that's been listening and subscribing and leaving a review on iTunes. That really helps us out a lot. So if you're listening to this on your phone right now, just sweep up. All you got to do is put your finger on there, I think, and sweep up, and you can go ahead and give us a review and a rating, and we appreciate those. Those help more than you realize. And if you're listening to this, like on Twitter or on Facebook or something, go to cryptocousins.com/subscribe. It's cryptocousins.com/subscribe and subscribe to the show and have every show delivered to your smartphone automatically. You don't have to come hunting for us anymore.
Good job, Gary.
Well, thank you. Try to get those promos in there. But that's about it for me. Unless you have anything you want to add, I think we're out of here.
Enjoy, everyone, and enjoy your summer. And it's ending soon. I see that back to school stuff is starting to show up in Walmart.
Yeah, last week was No Tax Saturday or something.
Oh,
Yeah. So, yes, definitely stuff showing up. Okay, everybody, thanks for listening. Love you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Crypto Cousins podcast. Please share this podcast with anyone you know that is interested in cryptocurrency. Your friends can subscribe on iTunes at cryptocousins.com/iTunes and on Android at cryptocousins.com/play. If you want to know more about Tony or Gary, just go to tonysakala.com or garyleland.com. Make sure and join us on the next episode, and thanks for listening. The Crypto Cousins podcast and information in the podcast are not intended as investment advice. Cryptocurrencies are risky. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. Always seek professional advice before making any investment. Investing in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies may present tremendous risks. Please understand that you are using any and all information available on or through the Crypto Cousins podcast at your own risk.